This is a story that has been in the making for many years. A tale of love, loss, revenge, redemption, and a whole lot of shooting. It's not just any story. It's one that I have personally lived through. But before I tell you what happened, let me introduce myself. I'm a retired hitman, and this is my diary. I've had many lives, some more violent than others. When I was 17, I joined the Army and became an elite sniper. After the Army, I worked for the government doing black ops. I traveled all over the world killing people who were targets of opportunity. This is where I earned my first name, because I could sneak up on anyone and take them down silently with my bare hands or a single bullet to the head. But this is not a story about those days. It's about another life, a different Sandman. That Sandman was born in the back alleys of Little Tokyo. The year was 1986, and LA was crawling with gangs and drugs. That Sandman grew up in a broken home, one that consisted of his mother, father, and older brother. His father was a Yakuza boss, and his mother was a geisha. Growing up, he saw his father beat his mother so often that it was normal to him. So when his brother started beating him, he didn't think much of it. His brother took him under his wing and taught him how to fight, how to be a man. At age 12, he took him to a bar and bought him his first beer. At 13, he let him join the gang. And at 14, he showed him how to use a gun. The brother also gave him a name, one that would strike fear into the hearts of their enemies, Gunman. By the time he was 18, Gunman had killed 5 people and had several arrests under his belt. He was well on his way to becoming a Yakuza boss, like his father. But everything changed one day while he was hanging out with his friends by a creek in the hills above L.A. 3 guys walked up to them and asked them what they were doing there. Gunman and his friends told them they were just hanging out, and they should mind their own business. But the 3 guys didn't want to hear it. They were from a rival gang, and they wanted to cause some trouble. One of the guys pulled out a switchblade and started lunging at Gunman. Gunman instinctively pulled out his own knife and started fighting back. The 2 other guys jumped into the fray, and soon it was a Gunman was outnumbered and outmatched. He knew he couldn't win this fight, but he wasn't going to go down without a fight. He fought with everything he had until his vision started to blur and his arms started to feel heavy. He could barely see now, and his movements were slow and sluggish. The 3 guys were upon him, and he could hear their mocking laughter ringing in his ears. He stumbled backward and tripped over a rock. As he fell, he felt something sharp pierce his chest, and blood started gushing out of him. He tried to get up, but his legs felt weak and wobbly. He looked down and saw that the guy who had been lunging at him with the switchblade had pulled it out of his chest and was holding it in front of him. Proudly, the other 2 guys were standing around him, their faces twisted into sneering grins. "You're gonna pay for that, you bastard!" Gunman gasped out, clutching at his chest. The guy with the switchblade laughed and shook it in Gunman's face. "Oh yeah, what are you gonna do about it?" he taunted. Gunman struggled to his feet, his eyes blazing with anger and pain. "I'm gonna kill you all!" And then he ran off as fast as he could. He ran until his lungs burned and his legs ached. He didn't stop even when he saw the look of surprise on the 3 guys' faces as they watched him stumble away. He didn't stop until he was hidden in the bushes by the side of the road. Once he was sure he was out of sight, he collapsed onto the ground and lost consciousness. When he woke up, he was in a hospital bed. A nurse was sitting by his bedside, watching him. "What happened to me?" he asked. The nurse looked up and smiled. "You were stabbed, but you're going to be fine. Your brother and the rest of your gang came in and told us to take care of you." She turned away and went back to writing in her chart. "What?" Gunman asked. The nurse sighed. "They said it was an initiation test. You passed." She left the room, and Gunman was left alone with his thoughts. He thought about the fight, about the pain and the humiliation of being beaten by 3 guys. But mostly, he thought about revenge. He was going to find those guys and make them pay for what they did to him. But he never did. The rival gang had taken his territory and killed his friends. His gang wouldn't allow him to retaliate because he wasn't strong enough yet. His father was furious with him for getting hurt and wouldn't allow him to leave the house. His mother, who had always been a pacifist, implored him to just let it go. But he couldn't. The betrayal, the pain, and the humiliation were too much for him to bear. He needed revenge, but he knew he couldn't do it alone. He needed help, someone who was stronger, smarter, and more ruthless than him. Enter Sandman. Gunman found him beaten and bloody in an alley behind a strip mall. He was the enforcer of a rival gang. The rival gang had ambushed and badly beaten him after he had killed their leader. Sandman was the best of the best, a true warrior. But the rival gang had taken everything from him: his pride, his power, his purpose. He was broken, defeated, and filled with hate. When Gunman offered him a place in his gang, Sandman didn't hesitate to accept. Together, they were unstoppable. They killed everyone who had been involved in setting up the ambush, including the leader of the rival gang. They took over the territory and established a new gang. The two Sandmen were now known as the deadliest killers in L.A., and their reputation spread like wildfire. People started to whisper tales of their exploits, and soon they were the stuff of legend. Years passed, and the two Sandmen became brothers in arms, loyal and fierce. They fought together, killed together, and drank together. But as time went on, Gunman became more and more reckless. He started taking bigger risks and breaking more rules. Sandman tried to keep him in check, but it was hard. He knew that Gunman was dangerous, but he also knew that he was a force to be reckoned with. One night, Gunman made a huge mistake. He killed a cop. It was an accident, but it didn't matter. The cops were after him, and he knew that he couldn't stay in L.A. anymore. He had to get out, disappear. But before he could, he was arrested. The cops had found enough evidence to charge him with murder, and he was facing life in prison. Sandman was devastated. He had never seen Gunman so scared and desperate. He knew that if he didn't do something, his brother would be dead. So he made a plan. He broke Gunman out of jail, but he didn't just break him out. He also took his place. Sandman turned himself into the police and told them he was Gunman. They didn't believe him, but they didn't have enough evidence to prove that he wasn't. And so Sandman went to jail while Gunman disappeared. It was a risky move, but it was the only way to save his brother. Now, years later, I can tell you it worked. Gunman changed his name and started a new life. He got married, had kids, bought a house. He even got a job. He was living the American dream. But it wasn't easy. Every day he had to look over his shoulder, wondering if the cops were close to figuring out that he wasn't Sandman. As for Sandman, well, he spent 10 years in jail. He got out and tried to put his life back together, but it wasn't the same. He was older, wiser, but he was also more cynical and more jaded. The world had changed, and he had changed with it. And that, my friends, is the story of how the two Sandmen became legends. If you like this story, please subscribe.